Hello everyone, I am Sonia, the author of KUHU Learns to Deal with Life. I'm also a contributing writer to My India, My Gods. Both these books have been published by Baboons Publishing and Sahana Ahmed. Today I'm here as part of a series by Baboons, which is called Stories That Shaped Me. I will be talking about the stories, the writings, books, and experiences that shaped my creative journey. So let me begin from the beginning, from an indulgent mother who passed me a book, whether we were out for a picnic, whether we were on a bus ride, or on lazy afternoons when I had nothing to do, or whether we were visiting friends or relatives. She always passed me a book and said, read. Her friends always brought books for me as gifts on my birthdays, and I think during my early years, those were the books I read. Credit is also due to my paternal uncle, my Tayaji, who left an entire collection of classics for my father before he moved overseas to Australia. And I think I literally grew up reading those classics. Of course, I went to a school which had a very rich library, and so I was just lucky enough to be surrounded by books, because reading is where your writing journey literally begins. So anyway, now coming to the books that I read, I think as a child I was just hooked to comic books and magazines. Chacha Chaudhary, Tinkle, Chanda Mama, Tintin, Asterix, and Target magazine. I would issue them and reissue them again and again, read them over and over, and knew most of the stories like the back of my hand. In fact, I think I have to credit Target magazine with this desire of, becoming a writer, because it was seeing the names of other children in print and reading what they had written that I was inspired to write my thoughts, put down my thoughts in the form of a story or poem, and I would often send those out to Target. So that was the beginning of it all. Of course, my school had, you name it, and my school had every book you could think of. There was Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie and Enid Blyton, Panchtantra tales, Shakespeare, poetry. We had a rich collection, a huge library, a beautiful library. And while I read all those books, I think I can clearly say that there was one story which was part of my Hindi course that really, really touched me, and which helped me make my reading choices after a certain point in time. So this story was Munshi Premchand's Eidgah, a very simple story which I think most of you must have read. I think it was so relatable, that story. It touched a chord, and I knew that even if I am to write a story later on, or then, it would be about people, about relationships, about people in a world which is kind and unkind, and yet kind. So I think Eidgah made a huge impact on me. It was only after Eidgah that I read Kabuliwala, which was another beautiful story by Tagore. And I think I was smitten by characters and stories. Ebenezer Scrooge, one of my favorites, Oliver Twist. And in fact, I used to love studying these characters. Emma was a huge favorite of mine, and I think Tess, and many, many more. So these were the stories that I began reading. Thereafter, my next vivid memory is of a 14-year-old me sitting on the floor of the school library in front of a shelf that had all plays, dramas. And in my hand was Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House, a translated version of Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. And I just chanced upon it and I began reading it because the title was very interesting. And I remember that entire afternoon throughout the lunch break, I sat in the library and read that book cover to cover. And I also got it issued after that, went back home and read the whole play again in the evening. I think to this date, I can say that my women characters, my female characters, carry within them the soul of Nora, who is the female protagonist of the play. In fact, I revisited Ibsen's A Doll's House when I was doing post-graduation and studying European drama. And it made such an impact on me that my first newspaper article, which was titled From the Days of Rajni, was a complete reflection of A Doll's House. I think I can say that now. Yes, it was a reflection of my reading of A Doll's House. So these were some of the characters or stories that hugely impacted me. I would also like to mention a poem which I read much later in a chicken soup series and which was titled Finger Paints and Crayons. It is written by Cheryl Costello Forche. And although I read and write poetry and there are many classic poems that I've read, but this poem, simple in its soul, but carrying a very powerful message on racism and discrimination, made its mark in my reading journey. And I think even as a teacher, I read this poem out to my students and we continued to perform this poem. And I think it's a beautiful, very, very powerful poem, something that maybe I want to be inspired by this kind of a poem to write something similar, even today. Moving on, I think most of my college years I was very impressed with the post-colonial writers, Naipaul and Ramanujan and R.K. Narayan, S.M. Ezekiel, Kamla Das. Why? Because maybe they were telling my stories in a manner I wanted my stories to be told. And I think even today, that is the kind of writing I prefer. That is the kind of writing I want to do. Something that is relatable, something that is easy to understand, and something that makes my heart skip a beat, maybe. So yes, it's very difficult to talk about all the books that have influenced my creative journey in a short video which spans over a few minutes. But definitely, these are some of the writings and some of the experiences that have shaped and continue to shape the way I write and continue to influence all of my writing. I hope you enjoyed listening to the stories that shaped me. And if you did enjoy this video, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Bare Bones Publishing and Sahana for inviting me to be a part of this. And I hope you will subscribe to the channel. Once again, I'm saying that. And until we meet again, thank you. Take care.